Hi, everyone. Welcome to Classics You Slept Through. We are the book podcast where we read and discuss classic books. I'm your host, Kyle Davis, along with a girl who is not a queen, but definitely makes the rules around here, my sister, Meredith Davis.
What up? I do make the rules.
Is your name? Your name's not Meredith Davis, is it? I don't even know what your last name is. Is it?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
You kept your last name?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Changed it once.
Couldn't have
changed it back. I'm not
Anyway,
changing
I'm
it again. It's a lot of paperwork. It is ridiculous. I still have the old, formerly married name coming to me on stuff because you can't just, women have been changing their names for I don't know how long. You think they would make it easier to just, hey, I got married. Can I change my name? No, companies are like, send the marriage certificate plus a copy of your license, plus we need this sign, and it's absurd. It's absolutely
Well, they just
absurd.
don't want you to run up a tab on your credit card, change your name, and then be like, oh, that's not me. I'm somebody else.
Well, they won't let me change it, so it's not me. I mean, it is me, but then still, it's not my name anymore.
True.
Anyway, tirade over.
Well, identity, who are you? What is your name?
Ooh.
Nice segue into these two books that we're talking about today. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass and What Alice Found There. Both by Lewis Carroll. He's not a reverend, right? Charles Dodson. I keep wanting to call him Reverend Dodson. He's not a reverend.
He did become a country pastor. County pastor.
So he is the Reverend Dodson?
Yeah.
For some reason, I have that stuck in my head. I keep saying that. But anyway, we have finished these two books. Hopefully you have listened along with us and enjoyed our renditions of them both. And we did our special event this past Tuesday. So if you did not get to see, we live streamed, did a little watch party of the Disney version of Alice in Wonderland, and we'll discuss that as we go through these two books. If you are feeling a little left out, right? A little FOMO for not seeing our watch party of Alice in Wonderland and not hanging around, never fear, because this Thursday, I don't even know what date that is. What is this Thursday?
This Thursday would be the 22nd of July.
There you go. July 22nd at 8 p.m. Eastern, we will be live streaming the Wyndham Classics Alice in Wonderland video game from 1984, 83, 84, I'll double check, early 80s, and we'll be hanging out, and we'll see, how far we get. Maybe we can beat it, maybe we can't, but it'll be a team collaborative effort.
How are we going to do this?
Well,
you're about to tell us.
Well, I'll stream it. Y'all will hang out and we'll discuss and just kind of have a chatty hangout time while we play this game from my youth.
So I get to return to my childhood of just sitting and watching you play video games?
It'll be just like going home, see? It'll be great.
I don't have to feed you a peanut butter sandwich or anything, do I?
It'd be kind of difficult long distance. That would be a little weird. But we could probably turn it into some ASMR and then get thousands of followers for listening to someone eat a peanut butter sandwich. All right. Well, anyway, so let's talk about these two books, Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. So what did you think? We have finished them both. You've read them both before, obviously.
Yeah, I think I read Wonderland more than Looking Glass. As I mentioned, I was too afraid of the Jabberwocky, not understanding that it didn't actually appear in any of the books, but just the mere mention was frightening. So right. The poem was in it. And the illustration, we saw the illustration was in fact Demogorgon-esque, quite frightening. But I think the biggest thing about both of them is the identity crisis is my favorite thing as an adult about Alice in Wonderland.
I think it was a little more explicit in Alice in Wonderland. She does have a little bit of that in Through the Looking Glass too, right?
I think so. Not as explicit. I mean, in Wonderland, she's like, who am I? I'm not Alice. Maybe I'm Mabel. I could be. And
she also has the body changing and the growing and the shrinking.
Herself. In Through the Looking Glass, she's literally lost though at some point and doesn't know how to get back to wherever she wants to be, and she wants to be a queen, so she wants to in some ways I mean, it's not really change her identity, but she wants to become something else. She wants to get to the 8th square and become a queen. And then it's whose dream is it?
Right.
Is this actually happening to me because I'm dreaming it? Or is it happening because the Red King is asleep and he is dreaming me? And so am I even a person? Do I even exist? Not who am I, but do I even exist? Or am I just a figment of somebody else's dream? Which that's even trippier.
Definitely some deeper themes on the second book than the first. But I think your experience of having read Alice in Wonderland far more often, it's definitely bared out. And just in the downloads over on Project Gutenberg, Alice in Wonderland is up over 23,000, and Poor Through the Looking Glass is down in the 2000s. So factor of 10 that people are reading Alice in Wonderland more than Through the Looking Glass.
Why would that be?
Well, I wonder, there aren't very many Through the Looking Glass movies.
No, I mean, Disney combined elements of the combined elements of the two, right? The one we just watched.
Right, correct. And most things are referred to as Alice in Wonderland, even if they are a combined property.
Yeah.
Like, I think even the Tim Burton movie, isn't it even called Alice in Wonderland and then subtitled Through the Looking Glass?
Yes. I think so.
Yeah, so Alice in Wonderland is definitely the brand, if you will, that has stuck as opposed to Through the Looking Glass.
It's not even Alice in Wonderland. It's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland.
True. Alice in Wonderland is probably, as we discussed last time, with copyright law, Alice in Wonderland is probably the Disney copyrighted name or something.
Yeah, it's definitely the Disney version. And I read earlier that the original title was Alice's Adventures Underground, which sounds less exciting.
Yes.
Like she joins the mole people or something.
Or she's doing club rap on the weekends. Nobody knows she's in a band you've never heard of now. But yeah, I think the first draft was Alice's Adventures Underground, and that it morphed into Alice's Adventures in Wonderland.
Did you know the original handwritten copy Lewis Carroll gave to the Alice that inspired all of this, and she sold it for £15,000 later in her life.
Oh wow!
Which is close to like what did I read, $20,000 or something?
But in that year, how much is it worth? What year? When did she sell it?
When did she sell it? Hold on, I still got it pulled up. When did she sell it? She sold it in 1928.
1928. Okay.
Yeah. To an American dealer for £15,400, or more than 20 grand US dollars by today's standards, in this article, which was written, I don't know.
You said 1928?
1928.
15,000 pounds in 1928 is equivalent to almost £1 million today. So that's a lot of money.
Well, then biography.com, get your stuff together, man.
I mean, 15,000 pounds probably equals, when that article was written, 15,000 pounds, yes, equals about $20,000. But accounting for inflation, how much was 15,000 pounds worth in 1928? Close to £1 million today.
£1 million. Okay.
£1 million, right? Which, depending on the exchange rate, could be anywhere from, $1 million to $1.2 million, $0.3, somewhere in there.
Well, in 1948, so then 20 years later, it was given back to the UK and is now in a British museum.
Oh, very nice.
The British Museum.
Yeah, the British Museum, probably.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So.
Okay. All right, well, let's just very quickly, we'll go through these two books. So, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, we have Alice she's getting lessons from her sister. She sees this white rabbit. She runs off through this rabbit hole and has these various adventures. And through the Looking Glass, she sort of so in this one, she has an instigating event, right? Like she is following this rabbit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what kicks off her adventures. In Through the Looking Glass, she sort of has a little bit more agency. She decides, gee, let's look at Looking Glass World and I wonder what's through there. And she pushes her way through and then receives sort of a quest. So as far as, I think, if we compare the two books in narrative structure, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, it's sort of a meandering journey, I guess. There's nothing, she has no real goal. And we saw this when we were watching the movie kind of explicitly. She's just following the rabbit. And then at some point decides, she doesn't like this anymore. In the movie anyway, decides she doesn't like this anymore and wants to go home. And in Through the Looking Glass, she's exploring. She's going out and she wants to find out what this world is like. She's curious. And then sort of receives this quest from the Red Queen to make it to the 8th square and become a queen and become part of this chess game that she's in. And then she sort of then has a goal to reach this 8th square.
Curious seems to be more of a theme. Well, I think it's a theme throughout. She's following the White Rabbit. She's curious. She wants to know what's going on with him. But in Through the Looking Glass, the Cheshire Cat says something about curiouser and curiouser as she goes on, right? Like things become curiouser and curiouser, which is a weird thing to say, but
yes, in the vernacular, she's using it as like peculiar, right?
Mm-hmm.
Curiouser and curiouser, sort of the line from the movie. So why don't we go through a little bit here? I want to talk the two books and kind of how we liked the two of them, and then talk a little bit about the movie that we watched for the live stream and how the Disney kind of explicitly changed things and kind of packaged things together. And then if you stay tuned to the end of the podcast, we'll have our next book ready to roll. All right.
Once I decide.
Yes, exactly. So the clock is ticking to pick the book. So in discussing these two books, which did you like better? Alice in Wonderland or Alice's Adventures in Wonderland or Through the Looking Glass?
In terms of prose and in terms of the language and the themes brought up, I like Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. In terms of the plot and like the things that she meets and the things that she sees, I like Through the Looking Glass.
Interesting.
So maybe as a whole, Wonderland wins out.
I think Wonderland does have a little bit more of a cohesive story structure. If either of these books can be said to, they're both sort of nonsensical books. So I don't know if cohesive story really makes sense. But Through the Looking Glass really is more of a series of vignettes almost. Mm-hmm. With the overarching theme of the chess match and getting to the 8th square, because each square is sort of distinct and, self-contained within itself.
Yeah. And like some of the iconic chapters, like Tweedledee and Tweedledum, I don't know, I didn't really dig Tweedledee and Tweedledum. Kind of wanted to get out of that square.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was hard to read, first of all, but anyway.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's briefly go through. Actually, I think why don't we go through the Disney movie, and as we hit upon the different things from the books, we can draw out what we liked from the books and what we liked from the movie, because that gives us a real visual of the story, right? So overall, the Disney movie really does follow Alice in Wonderland. Like the chapters are laid out. So the big things that they did in mixing the two, really, are they pulled Tweedledum and Tweedledee into the story, and just sort of, once the caucus race was over, Alice just sort of runs into them in the woods, and then continues on past them to the White Rabbit's house, whereas in the actual book, she finishes the caucus race and then goes to the White Rabbit's house. So they wedge that scene in there pretty much as written. I mean, they don't battle. It's a little quicker. They bring in the Father William poem, which Alice recites later in Through the Looking Glass. They have Tweedledum and Tweedledee. They put in their mouths. But otherwise, if you watch the movie and then you read the chapter, it's very, very similar. I mean, you know what you're reading. You know what you're watching.
Right. It doesn't have but I feel like in the Tweedledum Tweedledee chapter, the best part was Alice is getting really annoyed with them, and she's like, must you fight? And I wish that crow would come. And then the crow does come, and it blows the White Queen in, which I thought was a really fun part of that chapter, where she meets the White Queen and has to help her dress, and it's really ridiculous.
Right.
But that doesn't happen in the movie. They just kind of leave. Right?
I think, Alice creeps off while the two of them are continuing to recite poetry. I think, and as you know, I was unaware, but Tweedledum and Tweedledee and this poem and the battle over the rattle, I just wonder if in 1951 America, if we were just not as familiar with this poem, because Alice has a deep familiarity with this poem when she meets the characters. Like, she is meeting characters from something she knows.
Right.
And she goes, "Oh, you guys, guess you guys are gonna have a battle now, huh?" And she even says, "Hey, where's the crow? I'm done with this.
Yeah.
You know, crow, come on, let's get this going on." So she realizes she's living out this poem. And I wonder if by 1951 in America, you know, if television has rotted our brains to the point, you know, television and movies, that American audiences didn't know the Tweedledum and Tweedledee poem.
You're saying they didn't know it then?
Right. That's what I would assume, because, you know, because imagine you know Tweedledum and Tweedledee, right? Then you're going to be sort of like a Marvel fanboy going, where's the battle? Where's the crow? There's supposed to be a crow in this. You know, as opposed to just watching it and going, oh, there's these two funny characters. I've never heard of them before. Haha, they're cute. Right?
Yeah. Well, and it's also, it's a British poem, right? So Americans might not know it at all.
Right. So then they also brought in, because once she leaves the White Rabbit's house, you know, there's minor alterations for moviness in there, but pretty much the same as it is in the book. But running into the living flower garden, which was, you know, drawn directly again from Through the Looking Glass. And they sort of drop that in there, that she goes into the flower garden, has the conversations with the flowers. And again, having watched the movie and read the book, you know, if you're reading the book and you've seen the movie in the past, the movie plays out identically to the book, almost. You know, a lot of the lines, the dialogue, you can hear the flowers saying it as you're reading it, you know, from the movie version.
Well, she does threaten to pick them at one point. That's the best part when
she does. You were waiting for that.
I was. Because it's really brutal. I'm going to pick you, like, basically going to rip you apart.
Right.
It's violent.
So those are actually the two things that are explicitly dropped in scene-wise from Through the Looking Glass into the Disney movie. And otherwise, the movie faithfully follows the book, other than cutting out a few things, right? Cutting it down for making it, I guess, a tighter story, even though the movie is only, what is it, an hour 15, an hour 20? It's a very quick movie. So I don't know if there was cost consideration. And they've even lengthened it out by adding songs. You know, they made it a musical. So, you know, I wonder if they were making the same decisions today, if they would have just made a 2-hour movie and left a lot more things in. From Alice in Wonderland, they've cut out in the beginning, you know, when Alice begins to cry, she creates the pool of tears, and she meets the mouse in the boat, and they discuss cats, and she keeps bringing up Dinah and cats and scaring this poor mouse. I don't know if we've really lost anything there by cutting that scene out. What do you think?
No, I think it's functions in the book as one of the first introductions that Alice does everything wrong in this world that she's in. She keeps breaking conventions or whatever, mentioning cats to the mouse, and she mentions at one point in the serpent chapter, she mentions that she does eat eggs, but she's not a snake.
Right.
And she does mention, she keeps mentioning things that she shouldn't mention to other characters, and they feel offended or scandalized. And she's like, oh, I can't say anything right here. I keep doing everything wrong. And so I think that serves as like this, if I read some analysis of, Alice in Wonderland is the idea of leaving childhood or whatever, and children and adolescents trying to be a part of the adult world. I could see how that's, not that Wonderland is very much the adult world, but for kids, it's very trying to function in the adult world with adult rules don't really make any sense.
Right. It's scary and confusing and can seem very arbitrary. Definitely.
Absolutely.
So they cut out the puppy scene where she plays with a giant
puppy. Yeah.
Which is just sort of bizarre and weird. So I don't think that's lost anything. But the other two major scenes that get cut from the movie are the encountering the Duchess at her house and the baby that turns into a pig, which in other live action versions of Alice, they do include that scene frequently. Because it's just
the
sort
sneezing in the pepper
bizarre,
too,
right?
Part of that scene. Which
in cutting that scene out, then they've cut the character of the Duchess entirely.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering in watching the movie if we would see if they would, at least insert the Duchess as a background character or something as a nod to her inclusion in the book. And I did not see her in the movie at all. I don't think that they put her in there. But by cutting out that scene, we never get introduced to the Duchess in the movie. And so therefore, during the croquet match, she never appears again. So when the Cheshire Cat is causing the mischief in the croquet match, Alice says, oh, that's the Duchess's cat. And so, the Queen calls over the Duchess, and then they have a sort of a non sequitur conversation about morals and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Duchess says, hey, you need to go see the Mock Turtle. And so, narratively wise, this makes sense, I think, to cut it from the movie, because Alice goes from the Queen of Hearts court and the croquet match, and she leaves to go talk to this Mock Turtle and the Griffin, only to return to, in the book's case, the trial of the Knave of Hearts. So even in reading the book, you're like, oh wait, why are we doing this? Why are we going to see this Mock Turtle? Well, just to have some wordplay?
The Mock Turtle and the Griffin, don't they give the story of the walrus and the carpenter?
No, that's still Tweedledum and Tweedledee, isn't it? Oh, wait, do they? Wait.
They give they say a bunch of poems. They give a bunch of songs and poems and dancing. They talk about the
lobster quadrille. He sings Beautiful Soup. Now, the Walrus and Carpenter is still beautiful Tweedledum and Tweedledee.
Soup. Make a turtle sing a song about turtle soup.
Yeah.
It's still Tweedledum and Tweedledee.
Yeah, Tweedledum and Tweedledee in Through the Looking
Glass
still tell Walrus and the Carpenter. So, as we had discussed before, Disney did design the characters of the Griffin and the Mock Turtle for inclusion in the movie, ultimately didn't use them, and then, as we posted in show notes on previous episodes, they were used in a Jell-O ad in the mid-50s. So, at least those character designs exist. Those characters, I guess you could say, exist in the world of the Disney Alice in Wonderland. They just were not used. But yeah, it's very non-sequitur move there to just kind of go see the Mock Turtle and come back.
Yeah, I can see why they cut it. The world is very expansive, though. I didn't say expensive. I said expansive.
Oh, okay, Tony's Pizza ad.
I was hoping you would get that reference.
Of course I get that reference. We have an expansive menu. Expensive. Oh, expansive.
That was the best hometown commercial ever.
Oh my goodness. I love local. Don't get me started. I love local commercials so much. Anyway. All right. So then we get to Through the Looking Glass. And as discussed, they brought the two main scenes in, and then they just sort of sprinkled in things from Through the Looking Glass throughout. they kind of combined a lot of the Red Queen's speech gets put into the mouth of the Queen of Hearts in the movie.
Yeah, they kind of just folded queens together. Red Queen
Right.
becomes and Queen of Heart becomes one person. There is no White Queen.
Correct. Well, because we're not playing chess, we're playing cards.
This is true. The chess thing went away.
Completely.
Yeah.
And we also get a little bit of Jabberwocky does make an appearance. So the Jabberwocky fought through, or he was in the Tulgey Wood, and so Alice ends up in the Tulgey Wood. At some point, doesn't meet the Jabberwocky, but she does meet Momraths and a few other characters. And the Cheshire Cat actually is. It's very tough to catch unless you know to look for it, or you know the poem. He's sort of singing it's off in the distance and it sort of echoes through the woods, but he's singing the Jabberwocky poem.
Mm-hmm.
So
it just sounds like gibberish.
It does, exactly. But if you've read through the Looking Glass, you know what he's singing. So I thought that's kind of a nice little touch. They sort of throw it in, and they don't draw attention to it. But if you know what to look for, you know that's in there. And come to think of it, I would have liked maybe some chess references in the movie. I don't believe there's any chess references. Any chess pieces.
Well, when she's in the wood and she's crying and she's met all these little creatures and they seem to dislike her at some point. Remember, like the buzzards that were like umbrellas, and everybody seemed to act mean. And then she sits down and she's crying, and the little broom dog has erased her path. And she's crying, and then she sings a song, and all the characters like come to her aid to comfort her, and then they suddenly just start to vanish. That's not anywhere, is it? No. Unless that is similar to the woods where nothing has a name, and she forgets herself, and she forgets the like fawn forgets his name and what she is, and she forget like this, just the idea of being lost in those woods.
Right. I mean, and I think growing up, that's the moment where she's like, I don't want to do this anymore. I just want to go home. Like, I'm done being a kid. I'm ready to grow up and do something different.
Oh, I was going to say, I don't want to grow up. I don't know where my path is. I don't know what to do.
That could be.
I feel so lost. I just want to go home and wake up and be a child again.
And be a kid again? That could be. Interesting.
Whoa.
I like that. Well, one thing that we didn't talk much about or at all, in our reading of Through the Looking Glass, is we know that Through the Looking Glass is this chess game that she's playing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the front of the book, they actually lay out the chess match itself, and Carol goes through the various moves. So just to go over it a little bit here, he explicitly lays out every character that's in the story. So we've got the white pieces. So Tweedledee and Tweedledum are actually the white rooks. The unicorn and the white knight are the two knights on the white side. So I guess the unicorn and the lion, the other unicorn is the other knight. Mm-hmm. And then you've got the sheep and the aged man from the White Knight's poem. They are the bishops on the white side. And then you have, of course, the White Queen and the White King, or the King and Queen. And then on the white side, as far as pawns go, we have Daisy, the Heya, the messenger, Heya. Both messengers, Heya and Hatter, are both white pawns. We have two daisies from the garden. We have two oysters. We have the fawn that she meets in the woods, and then Lily, the White Queen and King's baby, whom Alice replaces as pawn in the game.
That's right. That's at the very beginning. She's so little.
Yeah.
She's on the table, and Alice picks up and scares the crap out of the King and Queen as they try to comfort their baby.
So then on the red side, as far as pawns go, we have some flowers in there. We have two daisies, and we have a rose, and the tiger lily are all pawns on the red side. In addition, they have two oysters and a frog and a messenger. I guess the messenger that she meets maybe at the doors at the end would be the other red pawn. And as far as the back row, Humpty Dumpty and the lion make up the red rooks. The white knight and the carpenter are the red knights. The walrus and the giant crow are the bishops. And then you've got, of course, the red queen and the red king for the court pieces.
I like that the lion and the unicorn are on opposing sides.
As they should be, as they battle.
What about the people she meets on the train? The goat and the paper man, or they're not a part of it?
I guess they're not actually players in the chess match. They're just living their life in Looking Glass world. Okay. Interesting enough that the flowers, though, are pawns in the game. Well, then Carol also lays out a chessboard with the locations of the pieces as we start, and then goes through the 11 moves. It says white pawn Alice to play and win in 11 moves. So going through our moves here, her 11 moves, which I guess basically correspond to the chapters. The first move, Alice meets the red queen, and then in chess notation we have red queen to king's rook fourth, so moves to the fourth square, so the red queen, I guess, goes over to the fourth square, while Alice through the queen's third square to the fourth square by railway, where she meets Tweedledum and Tweedledee. And then the white queen travels to the queen's bishop's fourth square, goes after her shawl. Alice meets the white queen with the shawl. And then the white queen to queen's bishop's fifth and becomes a sheep.
Oh.
So the queen does become the sheep.
Oh.
It's explicitly stated here. Then Alice follows. It says Alice to queen's fifth. It says shop, river, shop. So that's how she travels. Then the white queen goes to king's bishop's eighth, and it says leaves egg on shelf. So the white queen is leaving the egg on the shelf, or I guess Humpty Dumpty.
Right.
Then it says Alice to queen's sixth, Humpty Dumpty. And then it says white queen to queen bishop's eighth, flying from the red knight. So it seems that the white queen is actually instigating a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
As she's going through. So then Alice to queen's seventh in the forest. On the other side, the red knight to the king's second. And so the red knight who has left, remember that chapter? We have the red knight and the white knight were fighting over Alice. And then the red knight left, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it says red knight to king's second, and the red knight actually puts the king in check at this point.
Oh.
Interesting enough. So then the chapter 7, white knight takes red knight. So I guess that's the chapter where they fight.
Mm-hmm.
So had the white knight not intervened, perhaps the red knight would have taken the white king. And then we have white knight to king's bishop's fifth. That's where he's leaving. Then Alice to queen's eighth for the coronation. The red queen to the king's square. Says examination. This is where they're asking Alice the questions. Alice becomes queen. It says the queen's castle, interesting enough. So I guess the two queens, shift position. I'm not sure. Oh, I guess they're making a joke. The queens go to the castle, so the queen's castle. Because then Alice castles, where they have the feast. Then the white queen to the king's rook's sixth, which is the soup. So that's when the white queen takes a dive into the soup tureen to escape Alice, I guess. And then Alice takes red queen and wins.
She does have the red queen at the end, right?
She does. And interestingly enough, in chess, capturing the queen doesn't win the game. Capturing the king wins the game. But in this, she wins the game by capturing the queen.
So
I think Carol's playing a little fast and loose with chess rules here, but,
well,
interesting
it's
enough.
Fine anyway. For me, because I don't know anything about chess.
Oh, that's true, as we established last.
But I'm wondering if the characters that don't actually somehow further or try to inhibit her move one way or the other, they don't get counted. So like the flowers do direct her. She tries to go back into the house and they say, you can't do that. You have to go the opposite direction that you want to go if you want to go somewhere. And she's like, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to do that. And she does it eventually and it works. But they also tell her about the red queen. There's another flower like you here, right? So they do aid her in some way. But the people on the train, I don't think they aid her in any way.
Nope, they're just riding on the train with her as she's traversing squares.
So then, of course, they wouldn't be pawns because they're not
As
they're
bound
not
by the rules.
they're not helping in any way.
And it does make sense that she couldn't go back. Pawns can't move backwards. They can only move forwards.
Oh.
So she has to continue forward.
So, but even though, like, she wanted to go around the path, but that would have been coming back the way she came, so she couldn't, so she had to move forward, but it still put her where she wanted to go.
Right. Yeah. She can't get back into the house. She can't go back, I suppose.
Interesting.
She has to continue forward through the game. And interestingly enough, on the chessboard in the front of the book, there's only 8 pieces on the board. It's, a knight on each side, the red knight and the white knight, the kings, the queens, Alice, and a single rook who, it's a white rook, so it's either Tweedledee or Tweedledum, interestingly enough. Is the only other piece that gets to put on the board.
And there's only eight actual chapters of being in Looking Glass Land. And 8 characters, right? And then there's 12 chapters total. And some of them
are
like
because two of the chapters are a line each, right?
Yeah,
they're a line each. And the 12th chapter is very, very short as she's back home.
Shaking Dinah. Or, well,
Right.
maybe not shaking Dinah, but
Trying to
accusing
figure
her.
out who was who, yeah.
And when Alice wakes up, or Alice is still not sure whose dream it was, right? That's the quote unquote big question. But why would it be the Red King's dream? Why does that make any sense? I mean, not that it should make sense, but it does make sense for it to be Alice's dream. But the idea that she's in the Red King's dream and none of it is real, why does that make any sense?
I just think it's there to be a sort of terrifying thought experiment. I mean, I actually love that aspect of it, that should the Red King awaken, and I mentioned when we talked about that portion of the book, that in the game, as a kid playing it, I had this sense of dread over awakening the Red King. I'll be curious when we play it this week if the game does relay that, or if I just, as a kid, kind of gin that up in my own mind. But I love the idea. So personally, I fall on the side of it's the Red King's dream, because that's how I want it to be. I want it to be this fantastical world inside the Red King's head, and once he wakes, it ends. Because it sort of has this overarching sense of dread to this world that is otherwise kind of nonsensical and silly.
Do you remember that old school board game, Don't Wake Daddy?
I am aware, but I've never played it.
No, I've never played it either, but I remember the commercials. And I remember as a kid not totally understanding it. But I was like, I wake up my dad all the time. But it was like this terrifying thing, like, don't wake daddy.
Wow.
You pop out of bed and you lose the game.
It's coming from a generation where perhaps child abuse is more common. Yeah, you don't want to wake your father. He's been working at the factory all day.
Terrifying. I don't know if I like that it's Alice's dream. And I like the Inception-y thing where she's dreamed up that she might be inside somebody else's dream. And in her dream, she's scared that somebody in her dream would wake up because she's not real. And that everything she dreams in at least in Looking Glass, I felt it the strongest. I feel like I've had dreams like that, where I can't go forward, I can only go back, or I can't quite touch something, or I can only see it out of the corner of my eye. It gets blurry the more I concentrate on it. Or like when she jumps squares. I have dreams where it's like, well, I was in a boat, and then suddenly I was in my basement on South Washington Street. And nothing makes sense in the movement from one piece to the other. And like, you're not yourself in your dreams, or at least me. I'm like, well, I wasn't me, but I was me, but I didn't look like me. and I had these interactions, and then there was another me that could see, and my dreams are very. I think I had a dream about lucid dreaming where I was dreaming that I was lucidly dreaming, but I don't think I was actually lucid dreaming.
Okay.
Because I get real close sometimes where I know that I'm asleep and I know that I'm dreaming and I think like I should do XYZ, and then I start to lose it and I start to wake up and I have this battle with myself not to wake up. And I've read some stuff on like how to train yourself to lucidly dream so you can control it and do whatever you want while you're dreaming and know that it's happening.
Interesting.
I haven't gone that far yet
Okay.
to actually
All right.
do a daily practice
Right,
to
yeah.
lucidly dream.
Building
But-
habits are difficult no matter what it is.
But I get really, really close.
Okay. See, I'm of the opinion that if it is Alice's dream, it's just sort of a silly book where this kid's sitting by the fire, falls asleep, has this dream, wakes up, and just tells her family about it. Whereas when Carol inserts that last chapter, who dreamed it? What do you think? Did Alice dream it? And he puts the idea that maybe the Red King actually did dream it. And to me, that's more tantalizing. That this looking glass world actually exists. And when he fell asleep or he began his dream, the Red King somehow drew Alice in and got her to go through the looking glass, and that world is out there waiting for us.
Oh, so the way you're describing it, King exists, Alice exists. They're both people
Yes.
in their own worlds. He falls asleep and like is able to suck her into the world.
Right. Or he's already asleep. Or I guess a more sinister reading, or a more attractive to me reading, is the Red King's always asleep. You know, he's kind of like, you know,
Oh.
he's just, that's like, he's gone into the Odin sleep, and now we have to protect Asgard before he, until he wakes up. But if he like these people go about their lives, and they have their, their struggles and their battles in this grand chess match, but in the back of their minds, they're all concerned that perhaps he wakes. And if we look at like the feast in the final chapter, that could be like some sort of end of, as it gets so crazy, right? Like that feast makes no sense and it just goes off the rails. I think of it as like some end times debauchery before Armageddon, and the Red King is about to wake and destroy it, and like things are just going crazy here.
So is the Red King kind of like some sort of deity who has created a world and like been like set the clock in motion and things will happen as they will, but he's actually not going to control each and every piece, and he's going to go to sleep and things will play out as they may once he sets them in motion. And then when he so chooses, he could wake up and destroy it all, or
maybe he doesn't choose,
reset
but
the
maybe it was just
motion,
whenever he wakes,
Well, that is the idea that somehow Alice does exist and has been pulled into a world that is his dream. So he's like, is Alice in his head?
Well, she's in whatever form that he's, because we don't explicitly see. I mean, there's a picture of the Red King sleeping, right? But we don't encounter him as a character in the book. It's not that Alice goes through the woods and sees him sleeping,
Right?
Or, the other characters reference him sleeping, and we have the illustration in the book of him sleeping, but no one ever interacts with a sleeping Red King in the book. So who knows where he is, right? Like he's just, and everybody's in fear of this. I can just picture like, on the white side, the White King and White Queen, who the White King, we don't really see him in the story. We see him in the very beginning when Alice comes through the looking glass and picks him up onto the table. But imagine being on the white side of this, and that the Red King like controls everything. I mean, is their goal to capture the Red King and thus win the game and keep him asleep?
Wow.
I don't know. See, this is why to me Through the Looking Glass is the more interesting and more tantalizing book.
But you're also putting a lot of that on it. There's not a ton of evidence to suggest that that might be true in the book because they just say he's asleep. And so
Right.
there isn't a hint to suggest that he has pulled Alice into the world or anything like that, just that he's asleep. So that's why...
Well, other than Lewis Carroll asking, whose dream do you think it was? Like, I think if he hadn't included that at the end, I think the obvious reading is Alice fell asleep in the chair and wakes up, you know?
Right.
Which in some sense is sad because that's what happens in Alice in Wonderland. Like, they explicitly say she fell asleep.
Right.
And dreamt all this, right?
Right. And her sister is like, oh, I hope she, like, it's wonderful that she has this childlike mind. I hope she keeps it, or something like that. Like this very clear longing for the innocence and the silliness and the imagination of childhood.
Sure. Yeah. And I think it lessens it. I mean, Through Looking Glass was 6 years later. And to think after 6 years, Carol just came up with, wow, Alice fell asleep again. Had a cool dream. I mean, come on, man. We already did this.
Something works for you if it works. But
I don't know.
But
I don't.
If there were
I don't
elements...
think that Force Awakens worked. But anyway, blow up a bigger Death Star, sure, whatever, same thing. Anyway,
if there were other elements throughout The Looking Glass, like there are rumbling earthquakes and it's the king snoring or something, or it's implied that perhaps it is, or there is they fear the dawn or something, because that would be him opening his eyes. There is. What is it? What did I miss?
Yes. So after the story of the Walrus and the Carpenter, when they're asking Alice, who'd you like better? And Alice says, I like the carpenter. He didn't eat so many. And Tweedledum says, but he ate as many as he could get. It says, this is a puzzler. After a pause, Alice began, well, they were both very unpleasant characters. Here she checked herself in some alarm at hearing something that sounded to her like the puffing of a large steam engine in the wood near them, though she feared it was more likely to be a wild beast. Are there any lions or tigers about here? She asked timidly. It's only the Red King snoring, said Tweedledee. Oh, I guess they do see him. Come and look at him, the brothers cried, and they each took one of Alice's hands and led her up to where the king was sleeping. Okay, so they do run into the Red King actually sleeping.
And is he, the picture of him, is he huge? Is he small? Is he regular?
He's just a dude. Yeah, and she says, I think he'll catch cold. Tweedledee says, well, he's dreaming now. And then Tweedledee says, what do you think he's dreaming about? And Alice says, nobody can guess that. But then Tweedledee, why, about you, he exclaimed, clapping his hands triumphantly. And if he left off dreaming about you, where do you suppose you'd be? Where I am now, Alice says. He says, no, you'd be nowhere. You're only a thing of it in his dream. He says, if that king were to wake, you'd go out, bang, like a candle. Yeah, and so Alice says, well, if I'm only a thing in his dream, what are you, I should like to know? Ditto, they both cry. And so then now Alice gets afraid, like, don't wake him. So anyway.
Well, then there.
I was incorrect. They do actually run into him in the book.
And they can hear him sleeping or snoring, and it's explicitly stated, like it's as if everybody knows they are, or at least Tweedledum and Tweedledee know that they are figments in his dream, and this is just what they live with. Right.
Which is rather scary.
So if anyone enters, so is it true then that if anyone enters Looking Glass Land, then they are thereby part of his dream? Like, you don't get there unless you're part of his dream. Like, if Dinah had come with her, is Dinah part of the dream?
I guess she would have to. Well,
like if anybody enters,
Dinah's turned into the Red Queen, right? Or the Kitty.
That's what she says.
Or Kitty was. Dinah. She doesn't know who Dinah was.
That would be a better.
So Dinah
movie.
was Humpty Dumpty. That's who she thinks it was.
Dinah was.
She thinks Dinah turned into Humpty Dumpty. It's like he must have been Humpty Dumpty.
Poor Dinah.
Yeah. Anyway, so I personally prefer Through the Looking Glass, I think because of the structure and the chess theme, and I just think it has so much more richness that can be mined for a backstory on everything. Whereas I think Alice in Wonderland, as much as I love it, it's an amazing story, it is a little more straightforward. But it has the iconic characters, the Queen of Hearts and the Cheshire Cat. Anyway, so I quite like the Through the Looking Glass better.
I really like the way you have presented Through the Looking Glass better than what I got from it, but I still think I like the prose of Wonderland because of the back and forth she has with herself and almost the narrative voice and her thoughts interact with one another, and one breaks off and the other begins, and so the identity and who is Alice and who's leading you through the story gets all meshed, and I just like that identity crisis. Not a crisis, but idea. Well, it is a crisis. All of adolescence is an identity crisis, not in like the weird like cultural way it's been manipulated, but I think the original idea of identity crisis is just adolescence. It's like I have to find myself or discover myself or become myself by trying out being different versions, and they don't fit. Like, everyone has a stage. Well, I don't know.
It's not a phase, Mom.
Yeah, you have phases on purpose to figure out who you are and what path is right, or at least what feels right, I think.
Sure. I mean, we all go through our New Kids on the Block to Corn phase.
You made up this New Kids on the Block thing. You made it up. I was too young. My first CD ever was Hootie and the Blowfish.
That's exactly why when I came home and you had the poster and the pillowcase, I was like, wait a minute. This was like 10 years ago. Why do you have this?
You have made this up. Because what is true about us and our family is that we keep things. I mean, maybe not your household anymore, but we keep things. And if I owned those sheets at one time, I would still own them. And I could prove it to you.
I think you were embarrassed because you got rid of them for the next time I was home.
It wasn't. Besides, New Kids on the Block wasn't a thing. It had switched to whoever, Backstreet Boys or whatever, and that was not my thing.
That's why I thought it was so strange that you had this. I was like,
dreamed it.
That was cool when I was in middle school. Why do you have these things?
Didn't have it.
Anyway. All right, so that kind of wraps up Through the Looking Glass and Alice in Wonderland. Slept through or stayed awake for? What's our verdict?
Well, that's an interesting question, considering that so many people are asleep in this book. So would it be a compliment to have slept through Alice in Wonderland?
Is it my dream or is it someone else's?
No, but it was a stay awake for sure.
Definitely. As much, I say I like Through the Looking Glass better, but it's really like choosing between your favorite children. Sure, there's one you like a little bit better, but you love them both, right? Like, these are both great books.
You have 3 children.
Well, one of them's not actually, he's an alien. He's not actually mine. I only have 2 that are natural born.
Dude.
We're giving him back here on his birthday, so
your ticket's going to be coming due, or your payment's coming due on that real soon.
Exactly. Oh, he's going to get his on his birthday. Don't worry. So love both these books. Excellent books. Amazing scenes, iconic characters in both of them. I loved reading them. I loved going through them, and I want people to not only love these books, but love the Disney movie, which is something else that I love. I just can't get enough of that either. It's probably my favorite Disney animated movie, and has been since I was a kid. So I think we both stayed awake for this one.
Love. Kyle loves it. If you didn't know
I do. I really enjoy it. And I'm excited to play the game on Thursday. So Thursday night, this Thursday, was 22nd. 22nd. This Thursday, the 22nd at 8 p.m. Eastern, come see as we play on Twitch the Wyndham Classics Alice in Wonderland. It's going to be fun. I'm going to enjoy it, even if nobody else shows up. All right, so that brings us to the end of this one. And if you've hung with us this long, you're in for a treat because you're going to find out along with me, because I literally have no idea what our next book is going to be. So, Mare, Would you like a drum roll, or would you like to just announce it?
Okay. So, I'm still tossed up between 3.
Oh my goodness. Give me each a number, and I'll pick a number 1 to 3.
And here's what I'm dealing with. Do we go with a classic or a public domain book that nobody has read? That might be good, might be terrible. It might be very questionable. I don't know what's in it, right? And what if it's boring? I don't know. So do we go with something that I don't know at all? There's another one that I picked that I know the author, but I've never read this piece by that author. And there's another one that's super classic, but I've never read that piece. All right. So
well, we just did super classic, right? Like Alice in Wonderland, Through the Looking Glass, iconic. So maybe we go with more obscure.
Okay, fair enough. Okay. My neighbor just got home and he's running the motorcycle, so you might have to take that out. You won't hear that. Okay, so Kyle says more obscure. Okay, so we go real obscure, like real obscure that none of us have ever heard of, that I've never heard of, or do we go like author that I know about but I've never read this piece?
So I think the only book that we've done that... No, I guess we've done 2, because you had never read Northanger Abbey, right? Or had
Correct. You? No.
Okay, so neither of us had read Northanger Abbey when we did that, but obviously Jane Austen, we'd read Jane Austen before.
Right.
Neither of us had read Island of Dr. Moreau before.
Right.
But we'd read H.G. Wells before.
Mm-hmm.
And the other books, at least one of us has read each of those in the past.
So I feel like you're going with, let's read something fully we have no idea.
We have no idea. Let's go no idea on this one. Yeah.
All right.
Then so what's our book? I'm ready.
Our book is called 3 Men in a Boat, to Say Nothing of the Dog, by Jerome K. Jerome. And it is supposed to be Victorian humor.
Boat.
It's comedy. Victorian comedy. 3 Men in a Boat, to Say Nothing of the Dog, parenthetically, by Jerome K. Jerome, JKJ.
Jerome K. Jerome. All right. So I like parenthetical titles, so that's a good start.
Yeah.
3 Men in a Boat, huh?
Say Nothing of the Dog. So I guess basically I could give you the summary.
It has 4,000 downloads on Gutenberg, which is twice as many as Through the Looking Glass. So people must like it. Twice as many.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well,
interesting.
There are... Where did I
So do you know anything of this? Do we want to just go in cold? So you said it's humor. It's humor, right?
It's comedy. Yep.
Comedy. Okay, which is good.
And apparently the gist is 3 guys go on a boat ride and they take an aged dog with them and nothing goes right.
All right.
So I don't know if it's slapstick. I don't know if it's dark comedy. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, we will check this out. I will download this book, and obviously since we're going to this cold, I don't know how much to read for next time, folks, but by the time you are listening to this episode, I will have in the show notes what the first reading assignment is for 3 Men in a Boat, to Say Nothing of the Dog, by Jerome K. Jerome, and we will, you'll get the episode next week. It'll pop up into your podcast feeds, so, we're recording this on Saturday. This episode will drop on Tuesday. We'll play some Alice on Thursday, and then the following Wednesday, you will get the first chapters of 3 Men in a Boat.
To Say Nothing of the Dog.
To Say Nothing of the Dog. All right, so I'm intrigued. I like humor. I like old books. I like old books with humor. So let's
find out.
Let's hopefully be pleasantly surprised on this one. Like we have, I don't think we've had a book we haven't enjoyed yet, right? We've enjoyed all of them. Is that fair enough to say?
I think so. Didn't you say you stayed sort of awake for one of them? I think we were awake on all of them. but
I think I was slightly disappointed in Dracula. It was not as good as the first time I had read it. It
agreed.
A little bit of a slog, but otherwise, I've enjoyed, overall enjoyed all these books. So, all right. Well, excellent. Well, thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you for anybody jumping on Twitch and any of our YouTube viewers that are watching this over on the video stream. We're not streaming on YouTube, but you can watch it on YouTube. Which brings us to where you can find us, right? So if you like these books that we're bringing to you, if you like our discussions and our renditions of these classic books, that, they're free of charge to you. We read them and you enjoy them free of charge. Then why don't you hop on over to Apple Podcasts and rate and review us? You found the show somehow. Why don't you help somebody else? Give us a good rating, and that will help other folks find the show. Spread it around. Tell somebody. Put it on your social media. We have social medias all over the place. We've got Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at CYSTpod. You can send us your thoughts over on regular old email, cystpod@gmail.com. And you can also like and subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Twitch for when we do these special events and cool streaming stuff that we're doing as we're expanding the CYST cinematic universe, right? All right, so until next time, this has been Classics You Slept Through. I hope you guys are all chugging through your summer reading lists because summer doesn't last forever.
Peace.